This is the Business of Apps podcast, bringing you actionable insights from the leaders of the global app industry and the world's fastest growing apps. You can find more app news, data and analysis over at businessofapps.com.
Welcome to the Business of Apps podcast. On this show, we invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. We promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. In this episode, we have Marion Balinoff, influencer marketing consultant. Marion, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Thank you for coming. Okay. Now, today I would like to continue the influencer marketing theme, covering with Marion running an influencer marketing campaign. Previously on this podcast, we covered this topic conceptually multiple times, and I bet you read about its pros and cons on blogs, watched presentations, etc. But this time I want to focus specifically on launching your own campaign. I want to give you an example of how it should be done so you can avoid costly mistakes. I'd like to begin each episode with letting my guest to tell me her or his story. So please tell us about yourself, Marion.
All right. So I'm Marion. I've been working in influencer marketing for the past 7 years now. I started working in an influencer marketing software company. So they were building this software to, find influencers at scale and run campaigns at scale. So I handled the campaigns for loads of different clients. Actually, none of them were in the mobile space. And then after a few years, I realized I was a bit frustrated being on the agency side, so to speak. And I wanted to have more power over the strategy and the campaigns themselves, let's say. And so I decided to move over to the client side, and I specialize in mobile gaming. So I've been working in this industry for the past 4 years now. I worked as influencer marketing lead in several mobile gaming companies across Europe, where I basically built and executed the influencer marketing strategy for several titles. And last year, I actually decided to launch my own business in consultancy because I really wanted to diversify, the projects on which I worked and be able to do more things also with influencers themselves. So that's pretty much about me. I've only been doing performance-driven influencer marketing, so really working towards ROI goals, making sure that our campaigns are being profitable and optimizing that way.
Do you like to play games on your phone yourself?
I do play certain games. I've played more in the past when I had more time, I have to say.
No, that's easier to you. Years and years ago, when I used to be an app marketer, it was a bit of a challenge for me because I never was a gamer. Tetris was my, I guess, the only game I was okay to play with occasionally. So, marketing something which you're kind of forcing yourself to play to be able to know the product wasn't that easy. So it's obviously a plus
Yeah.
when you're actually into games yourself.
Exactly. That's why I'm sticking to this industry now that I've set my foot in there, because I really actually like it, and especially having to research, like downloading a game and playing a game, I find it pretty nice. So yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Like I said, previously we covered different aspects of influencer marketing, but this time I would like you to walk us through the influencer marketing campaign like you would run for a client. So where do we start?
Where do we start? So I guess it all starts with understanding the audience that we want to target. Like with any other acquisition channel, we need to understand where this audience is, and in that specific case, what type of influencer this audience is going to be watching, right, or following. So once you've understood the audience demographic from your app, because maybe you've run some surveys or you understand from similar games what your audience is, then you have to try to find that audience through those influencers, right? So let's imagine that you have a cooking game and that your audience are female 25 plus. Obviously, you will want to work with cooking influencers because it's a direct correlation and it's most likely going to work. But you should also expand to influencers beyond that vertical, beyond cooking, because they will also perform. In the end, I'm not necessarily good at cooking, but I do enjoy cooking games. And so
Mhm.
that's what you need to understand. And that's why you need to find, for example, verticals of influencers that have this 25 female audience. And so in the end, expanding. So lifestyle, for example, fashion, travel, maybe true crime and sort of verticals that will help you get to that audience. So don't stick to what you think is obvious and expand beyond so you can also, in the end, scale your campaigns.
So we have to keep in mind that people's interest kind of a fluid thing. It's more of a spectrum. Some people are really into something. This is kind of easy fruit for you, but you have to remember that degree of interest can be different, and you're basically leaving some audience, so to speak, on the table if you're not tapping that extra audience that is not directly interested in your game. People who will be interested in playing with your mobile game, but that was not a region that came to your mind. That these people can be, actually players for your game. Okay, as of today, what social media platforms would you suggest to work with? Among all those names that are in our heads right now, TikToks, Instagram, YouTube, and other channels, which ones you would suggest marketers to be focused on?
I guess it all depends on your goals, right? If you want to do performance-driven influencer marketing and if you want to be able to measure the performance of your campaign, being able to understand what was the quality of the users that you acquired, something that is very, very important to keep in mind is the analysis and the trackability, right? In TikTok, you can have a link that is going to be only in the bio of the influencer, which is not a great user journey, obviously. So you're not going to have a lot of track traffic. On YouTube, on the contrary, you have the link that is directly in the video description, right? So it's right below the content, and it's going to be much more accessible for the audience to click and download your app. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. And that's also something that you can balance if you have some features in game, for example, in your app that are gift codes, for example. So even if you don't have the tracking link and you share a gift code, then you can attribute those people back to your campaign, and that's going to help you with your analysis. So really have in mind how you're going to measure the campaign, because it's most important. For me, doing data-driven influencer marketing and making sure that our campaigns are profitable, I am 90% of the time working on YouTube, simply because this is where I see most traffic coming from in terms of track traffic. And this is going to help us really measure the performance, because in the end, even on YouTube, I'd say probably more than 80% of the traffic is organic, right? If not even more than that. So you really need to be able to attribute that organic traffic back to your campaign.
Yeah, that's actually amazing how YouTube is capable to, so to speak, hold the punch from TikTok and still being on the front of the app marketer's mind in terms of its efficiency, reach, the diversity of audiences you can reach on this platform, and actually deliver for your app marketing campaign. The app industry is vast. To navigate this space, you need a directory to look up suppliers and partners, and you need to know who are the best. Visit our marketplace directory at businessofapps.com/marketplace/podcast. And now, back to the show. All right, next up is testing. What solid influencer marketing campaign testing strategy should look like?
Right. So in terms of testing, I came up with what I call the campaign testing framework, which is basically identifying all the verticals that you believe will be a good fit, or that you may not think it might be a good fit, but it's worth testing. So identifying all those verticals, as I said, maybe cooking, lifestyle, gaming, etc., and working with smaller creators. The idea is to be able to work with as many of them as possible to try to understand if those verticals will perform for your app before you actually start moving forward to bigger creators, because obviously those will cost you a lot more money. And when you launch a campaign with smaller creators, then you have to understand what brought the performance. Was it because the conversion rate was good and you did have a lot of installs coming in, or was it because the LTV was really good? And because even if you didn't get a lot of installs, the few users that you had spent tremendously and was great, right? So you really need to deep dive into the different metrics to understand what's the reason for the performance and what can you impact in your next campaigns to be able to keep scaling, obviously, and understand what does perform and what does not perform.
Wise, yeah, I've heard many presentations about A/B testing, but I don't think I can come up with a single number of like how much time you should dedicate for A/B testing campaign for these channels. It's a couple of days a week, it's 2 weeks, like just from the top of your head. What would you suggest time-wise?
I don't think I can answer the question with the numbers of days, unfortunately. I think it's more, you should see this in launching one campaign in a month, right? So having all of your influencers going live together to be able to see maybe hopefully a spike in your organic metrics so you can measure the campaign. The campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 3 on several months, and then gather all the data to be able to then come up to some conclusions. But it's more about how many influencers you've actually worked with in all those different verticals, so you have enough data to be able to say whether or not this or performs or not.
Now, performance. How would you increase the performance of a marketing campaign? What marketers should do when things unfortunately aren't going as they were expected?
Of course. So the most important thing is to understand where does the performance come from or where it's lacking, obviously, right? So understanding if it's the conversion rate that is too low or the LTV that is too low, or maybe the price that you're paying the influencer that is too high. So based on all of this, you can have an impact on the conversion rate and the LTV. So for example, the conversion rate, so you're seeing that your influencers are not converting well, but the few people that are bringing, they are good quality users. So that means that you need to increase your conversion rate. To do so, you can have, for example, a gift code of gift links that will grant to the audience some free goodies in your app that will obviously increase the conversion rate because people always want to benefit from something that is free. You can implement some giveaways in your campaigns with your influencers. So maybe giving away some merchandising from the influencer, maybe for the first, I don't know, 100 people that download the app, or first 100 people that reach that score within that certain period of time will be granted some merchandising. Something that is related to the influencer often performs better simply because you are talking to the influencer's audience. And so in the end, they will be keen to get something related to their favorite influencer. You can also create some in-app content related to the influencer. So this is a bit of a next step because obviously we'll need to involve your product team, maybe your art team as well. But I've done that a lot in mobile games, so creating, for example, characters based on the influencer, and this performs tremendously well. So both in terms of conversion rate, because the audience will want to collect whatever's related to the influencer, but also in terms of monetization, because you might be able to collect that content for free if you play the game, for example, but you can also put it in the shop for people that maybe feel lazy and want to directly purchase the character. And in the end, we've seen some campaigns with crazy ROI, more than 200%, 300% in some of them. So this is really a good way for you to improve your campaigns, but it also requires some help from the game team.
Gotcha, Marion. Now, working with influencers for years, I believe you should have some examples of what are they capable to deliver for a mobile app marketing campaign. Can you share some example of that?
What do you mean by what they deliver in terms of content, in
Deliver
terms of
like
performance?
performance wise, like how do they capable to move the, so to speak, move the needle for a marketing campaign, performance wise?
Right. So obviously performance is going to be drastically different from one influencer to another because they will not perform the same. But I've worked with MrBeast, which is probably nowadays the biggest influencer on this planet. The guy is making 60 million or even more views per video. And I've worked with him on several occasions when he was actually starting. And I have to say that the performance was absolutely crazy. So we were saying up to 200,000 installs from that single influencer coming to the game, but also because we had optimized our campaigns. We had created some giveaways. We had some in-game content related to him. We had adapted the store, the app store icon based on the influencer character, creating a full user journey around it. So performance can be absolutely massive. Those campaigns were actually outright positive. So it was very, very satisfactory. But it does obviously require a lot of time, a lot of planning, and a lot of involvement from all parts. But yeah, performance, like in terms of installs, as I said, up to 200,000. I guess it's pretty insane from one influencer only.
That's for sure an insane number. I think it's a kind of a perfect storm when you have a mobile game that always involves people's kind of a emotional reaction to the character. You have an influencer who have a really good rapport with the audience, with his followers, and introducing that character, that game to these people, probably like you can get the best impact performance-wise comparing with other kinds of apps. But always it comes down to how relevant the any app or mobile game to the audience. But I guess mobile game has the best chances to give that huge boost. Yeah, this is definitely an impressive number. Now, what are the key takeaways you would like our audience to remember after this episode?
I think the first one, and it's a mistake that I'm often seeing, is about the influencer audience demographic. There are often marketers that are selecting the influencer based on their channel, based on their content, assuming that the audience is going to be this and that. And in the end, they might be completely wrong, especially with the audience location. Because a Spanish-speaking influencer might not have all these audience in Spain, he might have been in Latin America. And so this will obviously drastically impact the campaign performance. So verifying the audience demographic is key. And then the second, I think, most important takeaway is to anticipate the way that you're going to be measuring your campaign. Because as I said, 80% or even more than that of the traffic is organic. And so you need to be sure that when you'll be launching a campaign, hopefully nothing else should be impacting your organics. Maybe no TV campaign, maybe no featuring, maybe no icon change. So the data is as clean as possible. So then you can analyze the performance of your campaign and attribute it hopefully to your influencer marketing campaign.
Yeah, the measuring of performance for influencer marketing campaign, I think has been like number one, not a challenge, but important thing to remember for as long as I remember influencer marketing, its existence, and to this day, you do realize that you have a really good chance to expose your app to a great audience of people who are acceptable for a message from that particular influencer. But at the same time, kind of comparing with the traditional marketing, like paid advertising platforms, where the name of the game is precise measuring of the campaign performance, you're not even close to get that granular accuracy of performance campaign measurement. But again, you have a chance to expose the game to the audience who will be really receptive to what it has to offer.
And yeah, I was just saying that now I think, because this is the question I get most often asked, like about how do we track the performance, right? And I guess that now app marketers, seeing all the changes with iOS and the accuracy of the analysis and the tracking, they do realize that, okay, well, it's not going to be as trackable as it used to be. So we need to change things and to adapt. And so that also opens the door to channels that are not as trackable, like influencer marketing, like podcasts, like TV and stuff like that they might be reconsidering, because in the end they know that it can drive great performance, even though the accuracy of the analysis might not be as high as for typical user acquisition campaigns.
Exactly, that's a great point. With introduction of SCAD network from Apple and deprecation IDFA tracking, the importance of influencer marketing, I would say, even become greater, because the people see greater value, just like you're saying. Marion, you've been in influencer marketing for a number of years. Is there something you would really like to change about this field?
There are so many things I would like to change in this
Probably
field.
pick up the biggest one.
The biggest one, I would love for companies to stop paying the influencers a fortune just because they're doing branding and not paying any attention to the amount of money that they're paying them. Because in the end, it makes it incredibly hard for us that are doing performance influencer marketing to reach CPMs that are decent and that make sense for us to be able, to reach profitability.
Got you. All right. We've covered the first part of the show, and there is a second one where it's small but sweet. This is where I get a chance to ask every guest on the show just a few quick questions and let the people who are listening to us know these people better. Okay, what smartphone do you have now? Perhaps you've been switching between these two giants, iOS or Android, or one side all the time?
I've been a loyal follower of iPhones.
All right. What was your first mobile phone?
It was probably a Nokia, but I don't even remember which one. I just see it how it was, but I think it was so long ago that,
Yeah, I guess back in the day, Nokia was the number one. It's
exactly.
Doesn't really matter what specific model. It was the matter of was it Nokia or not. Now imagine right now you've left your iPhone at home. It may happen. What would be the most missing feature for you when you're out?
I think it would be Google Maps, simply. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most common answers I can hear from people. Now, perhaps there's something you would like to add to your to the capabilities of your iPhone, something like hardware, software, or both. Or like, I'm not necessarily asking, would you like your iPhone being capable of doing more, but perhaps keeping the better balance between being part of your life and not consuming 24/7 of your life. What would be that thing for you?
To be fair, I think using my phone just enough as it is, if not too much, I think it's doing plenty of already. And if I could get less time on my iPhone, I would do it. So I'm not going to look for more things to do or more ways to use it.
Gotcha, Marion. All right. Before I let you go, a very final question to you. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
Of course. So you can find me either on LinkedIn or on my website at marionbalinoff.com or LinkedIn, either way. And just, ping me and add me, and we can have a chat about influencer marketing or anything else you'd like.
Great. Marion, thank you so much for coming to our podcast and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Art.
And that was Marion Balinoff, influencer marketing consultant. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps and you will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays. So subscribe and you'll be able to get new episodes on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Apps podcast. For more, head on over to businessofapps.com.